Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. So once again I am doing laundry, so I apologize for the noise in the background. But this video is going to be an updated, an update on a current case that is going on. Now this is a relatively well covered case, so I will be saying the name, and that is Cindy Gladue, or Gladue. It's pronounced both ways, but what I'm most commonly hearing is Gladue, her last name. So I did a part 1 and part 2, I think a month or two ago, and I was saying that I would be updating you guys on the case. So I wanted to wait kind of a little bit to kind of figure out where this case was headed. So if you see me looking back and forth, I am looking back on news articles and reports. And once again, I will be tagging those articles down below. So just to recap, Cindy was a young mother of 3 beautiful daughters, and she was brutally murdered. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of the graphic details. That is in part 1. I will be linking them down below too, so you guys can keep kind of it all together. I'm not going to go into too much of the graphic details due to the respect out of that this case is relatively fresh again, and just out of respect to the family of Cindy. So back in 2015, this case was deemed not a mistrial, just that Bradley Barton, who is the accuser, was found not guilty of murder. Now, a lot of people were outraged by the fact that clearly this ended in Cindy's death, and all the kind of surveillance footage and security cameras didn't catch anybody going into the room that these two got together besides Cindy and Bradley. So this case was taken to the Supreme Court of Canada, and it was deemed that this case should be reopened and retrialed as manslaughter. And the difference between murder and manslaughter is that murder is basically you intended to kill that person, that you went in meaning to kill that person. Manslaughter is basically you caused the death by accident. You didn't plan it, it just happened. Now, this case started to retry about 3 weeks ago, maybe a little bit less, a little bit more, and kind of like not new, but kind of evidence that wasn't really talked about in the first few weeks and months of the first trial. And why I say months is because it was kind of dragged a little bit all over the place. So I'm just going to be looking down at, so the rundown is she basically bled out in a bathtub, and the evidence pointed to that she was basically put there. She didn't put herself there. There was no evidence to describe that she was put in the bathtub by herself, that she went in there willingly. And the accuser, Bradley, did flee the scene and talked to a co-worker, and that co-worker kind of talked him into calling the police. So he didn't do it willingly, he kind of fled the scene. It brought a lot of red flags to a lot of people. So now that the case is being looked into, they have discovered that Bradley has kind of wishy-washed a little bit. He basically tried to back out that, he didn't touch her, they only had a few drinks together, that they didn't have any physical contact. Now, that I think is little bit of bullshit, because literally you can see on the security camera they were holding hands, they seemed really friendly, so, and they were going into a hotel room. Now, she was a sex worker. I don't think that should pay any mind to this case, just because she was working to get money. Yes, unfortunately for booze and drugs, that doesn't mean that she deserved to die. Okay, so that was easily, I'm pretty sure that can be easily ruled out. Now, the only thing with this case that is really frustrating, basically it's almost 10 years. It will be 10 years in a few months that this case took place. Okay, and that to me always makes it look a lot harder, because to try a case that is 10 years old. I'm not saying that it hasn't been done, that it can't be done. That's not what I'm saying. It's Bradley can really work up his defense, right? So he has basically had 10 years to plan how he would bring this case, of course, with his lawyers, but how he can kind of play it off. Like, yes, she was a sex worker and whatnot. Somebody could have, like, snuck in stuff. That has been kind of brought up and kind of ruled out because of the fact that, you know, there is surveillance and security cameras showing just the two of them going into the room, and then Bradley leaving the room by himself, and then, you know, the police officers and whatnot arriving on scene. So, something that wasn't really talked about, I think, I haven't really found too much evidence that this was talked about, due to the fact that the first case was that they really pinned this on Cindy being Aboriginal and a sex worker. They didn't really show her respect. They didn't really, you know, try to defend her. Now, that has basically changed. New evidence has been talked about. Now, I'm not saying that this wasn't talked about before or brought into the court, it just hasn't really been talked about in the media. So a detective that was on the case, and I'm just reading this just to, you know, is basically, so this case started on, I think, January 13th. And there was a detective that was going to take the stand and basically talked about how she found a metal rod in one of the dumpsters behind the hotel room where her body was discovered. Now, I'm just going to read this, and then we will summarize, okay? So the detective said he could not rule out the possibility that the rod could have been used to injure Cindy. There was no blood on the rod, and the Crown told the jury that the rod was not a key piece of evidence. So that is why I'm pretty sure that this wasn't really heavily talked about in the first case, okay? So it wasn't really talked about or brought to the media's attention because it was really quickly ruled out as this could have been the murder weapon. And why this is, so I'm just looking for another news article. Why this is, okay, so I'm not going to go into a graphic detail, but where her wound was discovered and the cause of death, it was not caused by a fingernail or hand. It was deemed that this wound was caused by a sharp object. Now, just because there was no blood evidence found on this rod that was found in the dumpster, and of course this is where my true crime mind goes to, there must have been some significance to it for the detectives to bag that as evidence and bring forth that as evidence. Just because, you know, you find evidence, you want to bring forth the most damning evidence to the person that is accused of the crime. And it must have held some significance. So either it was related to the wound that was caused, you know, to Cindy, or they must have found some type of evidence, either fingerprints. Again, there was no blood evidence found on it. However, that could have been easily wiped down and washed away. So I think, hopefully, this is my hope, that, you know, the drains, the sink was, you know, sprayed or tested for blood and whatnot. So that's my hope. So when they had brought forth a professional kind of retired gynecologist and a person who has been deemed, you know, good for the court. And by that title, you can either look it up or know exactly what kind of area that doctor looks into. And basically, she went on the stand and said that this wound was not minor. This was not an accident. Even though it might have not been planned, it happened, and it basically, you know, nothing was done to save her life type of thing. I mean, it's not like it was hidden, like, you know, how you have internal bleeding that you might not know that you have, and then that could lead to death. That this would have been seen and noticed fairly quickly, and yet nothing was done to save her life, Cindy's life. Now, it was said that, so one of the news articles that I'm going to link down below does have a picture of the kind of weapon that was brought to, discovered in the garbage bin, and was actually exhibited and released to the media on January 12th, 2021. So that was basically, this evidence was re-entered into this case. So it was allowed in, it wasn't kind of brushed aside. So I'm pretty sure, I mean, even from 10 years ago, DNA and, you know, evidence and technology has changed drastically in 10 years. So if they did, you know, exhibit and put that through as evidence, then I'm pretty sure that there was some evidence found on it that they could use. So apparently, another thing that was stated by this professional was that, yes, people are into some rough sexual acts, okay? People are into that. That is, some people might not all agree with it. However, this new evidence that was brought to life, and kind of more, you know, talked about this crime instead of painting Cindy as the, you know, horrible human being, which pissed me off, but I talked about that. This type of wound took a considerable amount of force. So this wasn't, you know, they were doing something kinky and this happened by accident, okay? This took a lot of force. to cause a wound this deep and this long, and which, you know, caused the death of her, Cindy. However, again, yes, it could play off as, okay, well, some people are into like the really, really rough sex. Okay. I'm pretty sure, as I have found, in kind of doing research, is that yes, both parties enjoyed the rougher side of intercourse. Occasionally, Cindy, where occasion, you know, some of her clients did like it on the rougher side. However, not to this extreme. And by this much force of causing this much damage and, again, causing death. There's a lot of new evidence that is brought to the light of this case, and I think it's taken a lot more serious. We are literally in the middle of the trial, so I will be doing another kind of update video, and then I kind of wanted to wait for the 3 week mark, which I did. I'm doing this, and then the next 3 mark will cover the last 3, and then I'll do another video of kind of the outcome of the trial. I think that's what I plan on doing, because there is so much more evidence being brought forth, and it breaks my heart that it has taken 10 years for Cindy's family to get the respect and the potential justice for this. And it's also sickening to look back at this prior case and realize there was not a lot to discuss. You know, there was a few facts, but it was mostly painting Cindy as a horrible human being because she was Aboriginal, because she was into drugs and drinking and yes, did sex work. They really didn't put the time and effort into the evidence, getting to know her, looking at all the facts. And now that it is all coming to the surface, it makes me really, really happy and also really, really sad. And I just really, really hope that this turns out to be a outcome that, you know, gets her some justice, because before it was left to a lot of speculation and kind of everybody filling in the blanks and trying to, you know, be the detective. Now that the facts and the evidence are starting to come forth, it's painting a whole other different picture. That, yes, this might have not been a planned murder, but it is looking like, you know, it happened, and certain things could have done to prevent it, or, you know, life-saving measures, and none of them was put forth, unfortunately. And I really hope that she did not suffer. This type of wound does look like she would have suffered, unfortunately. However, she was, you know, drinking that night, so I hope that kind of it just kind of makes me really, really sad to think that she died in a bathtub alone. And, you know, it has taken 10 years to just get her justice and a recognition that, yes, she was a human being, that it didn't matter what her lifestyle was, that she deserves justice. And I just really, really hope that this outcome is one that is very much gets her justice. Okay, so that is going to be the end of my update. This is very nerve-wracking for me due to the fact that I do have a past with Bradley's family, and now that it is bringing more to light now, it's a little nerve-wracking to talk about, but I think, you know, I need to put aside my feelings of, you know, insecurity and a little bit of frightening of this, and cover this case as I started this case, and I'm going to see it to the end. And I just really hope that you guys will be respectful in the comments. Yes, we can have a conversation in the comments. Just remember to not float around names. If you guys want to talk about certain people that are testifying or involved, please kind of leave a hint, or if you just want to talk about it privately, please email me and we can do that. But this is kind of a higher case, so yes, you can mention you know, kind of the main names involved in the comments below. Just kind of the other like family members or people that are testifying, please just do nicknames or kind of identify which news article you heard this from and just say this person said such and such. It's just out of respect to people that are involved. And yes, some of these names are put through the news, but again, this is some relatively new information, so just be careful and be respectful in the comments below. Anyways, guys, until the next video, remember to never give up, always keep fighting, you're enough, and remember to be respectful out there in the world, that just because somebody might be homeless or a sex worker doesn't mean that they are a bad person. They are equal to us. They are a human being and they deserve the love and kindness that we all do. Anyways, guys, stay tuned for my next video and further updates on this case. Anyways, guys, love you.